So without further ado, I'd like you to introduce our first speaker here today. Anjana Sridevi is joining us from India this evening, her time, and I really appreciate her taking the time to not only speak as our first keynote speaker, but join our panel later on. And Anjana, as the global onboarding design and delivery leader at IBM, she'll tell you herself the type of scale, but you're talking tens of thousands of individuals onboarded every year. The scale at which IBM onboards is probably larger than most of us on this call, perhaps many of you put together. And Angela's been working for 17 years in that talent space, but also in client relationships, hospitality management. She understands what great quality service and experience looks like. And I think that's a critical aspect of her experience that tells you a little bit about where IBM placed the importance of onboarding. And she's going to be giving her insights on IBM's empathy-based virtual onboarding approach. Anjana, pleasure to have you here with us. Thanks for joining this evening. I'm going to ask you to take the stage.
Thank you, Johnny. Very, very happy to be here. And let me quickly share my screen. Okay. All right. That was an interesting call, and thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure I'm going to be touching upon a couple of those as I start. So as I said, my name is Anjana, and I'm part of the talent acquisition team at IBM. And I'm responsible for the design and delivery of onboarding at IBM. Let me start with this quote and a story. I think that will give us probably an overview of what I want to cover. Back in 2019, I was tasked with a group of team members from IBM to reimagine the onboarding experience that we were running at IBM at that point in time. We were, I think, 10, 12 of us from different parts of the world, all subject matter experts in their respective areas. We all got together in a room, with stickies and somewhere in Boston in a meeting room. And we're all trying to design this best onboarding process or program that we can create for IBM. And halfway through that process, our then leader asked us this question: okay, take me through the design of what you're creating. And we all stopped for a second. Design, we are creating a program, we're creating, a process. And where is design coming in that, right? And for us, it's, design is more with products. Many conversations back and forth. And I think that's really when we started to look at onboarding from a designer's lens, right? I mean, what does a good onboarding design look like? And this quote that resonates really well with every IBMer. This is from our, Thomas Woodson Jr., who's our second vice president of IBM. And this is in every IBMer's DNA, that good design is good business. And I think it's pretty much the same when it comes to onboarding experience as well, that having a good design is really important for you to create that experience. And that's really what we used when we were creating our onboarding experience way back in 2019. We applied design thinking practices and agile methodologies as we were creating that experience. And our focus really was to create an experience that will drive better human-centered outcomes at any scale. And our guiding principle, so to say, where create an experience that is focused on the user outcomes. Who are we designing for? And what exactly is the need of that user? And we had to constantly remind ourselves throughout that process that you are not the user. So don't just say, I think this is going to work, but we really have to say, what is the user looking for? What do they need? And really create an experience or create a design that is focused clearly on what the user is looking for. And then second is restless reinvention. Responding, the design should be created in a way that it can respond to the changing needs through rapid prototyping and iteration. And the pandemic was a really good example of us having to rapidly change and iterate the experience that we had created. And then diverse and empowered teams. Do you have the right mix of makers? I think everybody here would agree with me that it takes an army of people to make sure an onboarding experience is seamless and successful. And depending on the size of the company, it could even be hundreds of people. For example, in IBM, we have hundreds of stakeholders involved in making sure that the onboarding experience that we offer to a new hire is successful and seamless. And it's really important that we have the right mix of people who's involved in creating that experience. Now, let me talk a little bit about how we look at onboarding in IBM. In IBM, you are an IBMer the moment you say yes to an IBM offer. So for the IBM new hires, day one is not really the first day. It's really a celebration of a journey that's already began when they said yes to an IBM offer. So from the moment they accept an IBM offer, our new hires are immersed in a personalized onboarding experience that is, tailored to their location, their role, their skill set, and the level of experience that they have. So the way we look at it is that they are engaged from the time they accept an offer. So there is no real need to break the ice when it comes to their first day. The new hires are immediately connected with their manager, their team, when they accept the offer. That we don't have to look at day one to create that connect or break the ice. And instead of them feeling anxious on their start date or unsure of what to expect, our IBMers or the new hires on their first day are enthusiastic, they're confident, they're connected, and they are well informed. That's really the design of the experience that we have at IBM. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the experience that we had, say, before the pandemic, because there's a version that's after the pandemic hit us. The experience, we call it a started IBM. This was implemented in 2019, and this the focus was heavily on digitizing the experience, keeping it personalized at the same time, with the goal of jumpstarting their careers even before their start date. So as I mentioned, the experience starts at the time they accept the offer. So we have the time from the time somebody made a decision to join the organization till their start date. And we leverage that time to complete some of the things that otherwise was done on either day one or after day one. So which really allows us to save time and helps, in our hires becoming ready to work or being productive much sooner. And some of the strategic outcomes that that we had with the design of Started IBM was improved personalized experiences. Um, Anytime that you create an experience that's focused on digital, I think the immediate assumption is that a digital experience cannot be personal, and that's not the truth. I mean, we can really make it personal and tailored at the same time, even when it's digital. And that was clearly something that we focused on when we designed Started IBM. And increased productivity and retention. And this was one of the poll questions. How do you really measure? Do you really want to associate this also with retention? Can a good onboarding experience help the organization retain their employees? And our increased business requirement to have people come and start, say, the very next day at a client side. So is our onboarding experience designed in a way that it can meet the business requirement, which could be increased productivity, and retention, of course, is something which is really critical. And increased engagement and clarity as well for the new hires. It's really important that engagement is key, and the hires, especially when you're operating in a digital environment, that the new hires are engaged and they have the clarity that they need, throughout the experience of onboarding. Okay. Now let me tell you what happened with the pandemic. Now, as you could see in the previous slide, we were betting heavily on the digital experience to offer that outstanding onboarding experience, so to say. It was working very well for us. We had really good new hire feedback, really good feedback from the hiring managers. And then came the pandemic, quite unexpectedly in some locations, and we had to adapt and change really quickly, in some locations. And there are some sites where we had to change everything in a matter of days. And I'm sure, most of you who probably worked in moving to a virtual environment or moving to a remote setup during the pandemic would have experienced something similar. In the middle of all of these virtualization, it can be easy to forget, what makes us all human, and that's really the feelings. How can we make the experience virtual, operate remote, but also make it personal, and also consider the emotions of the hires at the same time? How can we support our new hires' emotions during a difficult time such as the pandemic? Joining an organization as such could be, anxious or nerve wracking for some people, but joining at the time of a pandemic when you have no clarity of what's going to happen, things are changing rapidly, that could add to the anxiety. So as we started working to solve the logistics of remote onboarding and how do we respond to COVID, empathy and personalization became the focus areas that had to be spread across the end-to-end experience that we were designing. So these were the two key focus areas that that were our focus as we were responding to COVID. Um, our onboarding transformation during the pandemic, I think the best way to describe that is empathy-based onboarding model. And I'm sharing this directly from one of the case studies that Gartner published in February, which was covering the experience that we did at IBM responding to COVID-19. And there were three key focus areas. One was people-centric journey mapping. This was, as I said in the beginning, the design of having people at the center of everything that we are doing, and then engagement-focused initiatives and personalized and virtual support. And I'm going to quickly show you the article that was published in Gartner, and we'll share the link with you so you can take a look at that later. And this covers in detail about everything that we've done during this time. But I want to focus on a couple of areas. One is, like I said, people-centric journey mapping, keeping the new hire perspective at the center of everything that we were designing. And be it the experience that we had to change, be it the processes that we had to, amend, or any of the technology gaps that we had, or any technology that we were introducing, how is this technology enabling us to move through the end-to-end journey seamlessly? With regards to the experience, in the absence of a live interaction, does the new hire feel integrated into the community? Do they still feel that sense of community? Do they still feel connected with the organization? That's something that we focused on. The process, we can't eliminate the process side of things. You have to complete your paperwork, you have to get your machine, you need to get an email ID configured. That is really essential to the, to the whole experience as well. Are the process steps easy? Is it relatively quick enough for the hires to move through? That's something we again started to think from a new hire perspective, right? I mean, we have this great process, but does it really work in the setup that we are operating in currently, with all of the challenges that people were facing? And there were, so many challenges. People did not have network. Some people could not get to, our technology solutions. So there were many challenges that were there. And then, of course, the engagement focus initiatives, right? Prioritizing the engagement by establishing, and we did a few things in this area, culture-based network, because our experience is global and we have country and geo-specific adaptations. But during this time, we really looked at creating culture-based network. We also looked at creating empathetic messages. We also started tracking new hires' emotional experience. And this was an area I think we spent quite a bit of time on in terms of reinventing. We changed our complete communications. We changed the way we ask questions in our survey. And I think our survey questions started with, how are you feeling? Do you feel okay? Are you anxious? Is there anything that we can help with? And then, of course, we asked, more specific questions about, did you get your machine, or, how do you feel about the support that you received? But the first change that we made really was asking them, how are you feeling? And what can we do to help? And then, of course, the personalized virtual support. And this is not just for the new hire, but also for the hiring managers. we actually looked at what are some of the moments where there could be, a challenge that that the new hire or the manager may be facing, and we identified three key areas. Moment of emotion, where the hire or manager is most likely to experience awkwardness or discomfort, and there could be moments of uncertainty where people are most likely to be unsure about the process, and there is a certain amount of uncertainty, and people are scared to ask a question. They don't know where to ask, who to ask. And then there's moments of change, where the hire or manager, they're most likely to experience a continuous change to the process. So we really identified what are some of these key moments and really tried to solution them, again, keeping the user in mind, and seeing what exactly is the user looking for. And more details are there in the case study that Gartner published. But let me quickly touch upon some of the changes that we made during the pandemic. Uh, Communication. I think a communication was really key, showing empathy, and making sure that the intent is to reduce anxiety. We didn't want to give them, a whole lot of instructions and tell them, just start doing all of these things and then you will be onboarded. But we really wanted to see, to reduce anxiety, and tell them that we're here to support. And this is a challenging time for everybody, right? And you're not in this alone. Um, we created videos. We created, as I mentioned earlier, some cultural networking group who were able to support new hires with some of the communications that we had to make. And then we leveraged digital platforms. Technology was quite important, when you operate in a virtual setup. And we used digital platforms to share information, share resources that were rapidly changing. By country, we had hires who were traveling, who couldn't move between borders. So there were many, different challenges and scenarios that we had to respond to, and we used our digital platforms to be able to, timely communicate with our new hires. Paperwork, everybody know this is really the critical piece of work. We made that 100% digital, making sure that the hires don't have to, worry about printing something, sending something over to us, or, coming to an office and dropping something. So made that process completely digital, which I think reduced a whole lot of anxiety. And that was one of the, most asked questions from our new hires is, well, what's going to happen to my paperwork? How am I going to do this? Who do I need to, contact? And then network and connect. I think this is very, very critical, that we have the hires have the support that they're looking for. And during this time, we extended the support that we were providing to the new hires. Um, Before that, as well as after they joined, we kept regular connects with the hires, the managers, in groups, one to one, making sure that they, had all of the resources and all of the information that they need. And people are, really concerned about not coming to an office, not being able to meet with their team, and that level of reassurance was really critical. And that's something that we did with our, with our Slack channels, our internal communication channels that we use. Provisioning, very important, important for people to start working quickly, making sure people get their laptop, making sure, it is set up, configured, working. Um, Another big challenge, I would say, something that we had to constantly iterate and come up with new ways to manage. But that was one of the other changes that we had to make during the pandemic as well. And then welcome session. I know every organization will have an orientation session or a welcome session that we offer. And doing this virtually, of course, is very challenging, especially if your session is quite long. Our sessions used to be, 4 hours long before the pandemic when we used to run them. During the pandemic, of course, asking someone to sit for 4 hours in front of a computer and listen to, to one person talking, of course, didn't seem like the best idea. And that's not really what our new hires wanted as well. So we split our sessions into two parts, and messaged, what should go on the first day, what should go on the second day, made the session very interactive and personal. We also created some custom videos from IBMers around the world, really sharing how working from home is for them. and making it as real as it can be. You're working and, you have your kids running around, you have your pet dog there, and, this is all, part of the work from home setup. And we want to make it as real as it is so that the new hires are not anxious and they're not worried about how this is going to work for them. So made it really interactive and personal. And I think this is one of the things that worked really well and what we were really concerned about, but the one that worked very well. In fact, our welcome session satisfaction during the pandemic was more than the one that we had, say, before the pandemic. So I think that was something that was really good for us to know as well. In terms of our results, and it was interesting when I looked at the poll that 49% of the organizations don't have a measurement. I think it's really important to do measurement to see where we stand in terms of the experience that we offer. And at IBM, we measure, we of course use NPS as a measure to understand how likely are our hires, recommend the experience that we offer. And then we also check if their decision to join the organization is reassured. And we ask that question a month after their start date. And we, of course, ask them questions around their overall experience of joining the organization. And we do check retention as well. I don't have the numbers here. But just to give you a rough estimate, I mean, we onboarded 26,000 hires virtually during the pandemic last year with a net promoter score of 66, and 93% of our new hires reporting that they feel welcomed, by IBM despite the virtual onboarding format and being worked remotely. And 95% of our hires felt reassured about their decision to join IBM after their first month. And these numbers are not easy to get. I wouldn't say this is how we started, but this is how we ended the year with. And this is what I want to leave you with, right? I mean, reimagining the onboarding experience is not something that's easy, and I think there are always lessons learned. Even for us at IBM, it wasn't a success at the first attempt. We had to make many iterations, and I think that's why these three are the key lessons that I would say that we learned as we reimagined the onboarding experience during the pandemic. First is fail fast and learn and iterate. Very critical and very important. And we had many instances where we failed. I mentioned about laptops earlier. I think that was one of the areas where we really struggled. The obvious option was ship the laptop to the new hires address, and that solves it. And we set up a process, started to do it, then we realized, we don't even have shipping contracts in some countries. Some people, moved home, they went back to their hometown, and we didn't even have the right address captured. So a complete process that you set up did not quite work. So we had to, iterate, come up with a new plan, what's going to work. So it is quite possible, and there are many areas you will fail, but it's important that you learn from it and then iterate and make sure that you work through that. Second, communicate and partner. Very, very important when you are operating remotely, that you communicate and you partner. As I said, there are a number of people involved in making this, a successful experience or a seamless experience for the new hire. Though onboarding team or HR or talent acquisition is the front face, there are several other people who are involved in making this a success. So it's really important that you partner, be it with the hiring manager, be it the person who gets you the laptop, be it the legal team that's looking at it from a compliance perspective. It's really important that we communicate and we partner with each and everyone who's involved, because it is a group effort, it's a team effort. And last but not the least, don't just build, optimize. It's really important that we don't just build something and leave it at that, but we really have to look at optimizing it, time to time. So I think those are the three key lessons that we learned from the experience. And that's all that I wanted to share.